then we should be able to say, hey, Black Lives Matter. Like, we matter too. That's what's implied with the Black Lives Matter. It's a two. So then when someone weaponizes and says all lives matter, using the analogy I gave earlier, it's literally intended to dismiss.
So an epistemic bubble is like, okay, you hold these certain beliefs because the people around you hold them, but you're not actively excluding conflicting information. You just don't come across it because of the bubble that you guys reside in. An echo chamber is where you literally go away from, you actively block out information that conflicts with your beliefs because it somehow hurts you. It creates cognitive dissonance. You don't like it, you can't handle it.
The problem is the positive messages are significantly less attractive. If I was like popping off on how women ain't nothing and I grew like Andrew Tate, like Andrew Tate, then all of a sudden it'd be like, yeah, we'd be doing well, right? Like red pill stuff, the easier, the smallest brainwave stuff, that's the most attractive stuff. That's the stuff that tends to grow the highest. It's boring right now, just like for us right now, just talking about like, hey, this is what we think would be better for society. A lot of people don't have the patience or tolerance for it. But let me start talking about some ratchet, why we should be able to have two wives and why we should be split in half on a bill, and then everybody wants to consume it. Here we go. Okay, Pons, you take it on away, buddy.
Alrighty. Welcome to the Fanatiq panel. Of course, our goal here is to have some big conversations about bigger topics. We're going to do two topics today. And our goal today is going to be to try to keep everything running smoothly. That's what we really want to focus on. So what we'll try to do here is stick to 45-second soapboxes, but mainly let's go for 30-second responses. Think about the clearest and most concise way to say what it is that you're trying to say. Think about those people there watching. So we're going to hit two topics today, but before we do, let's go ahead and go around and just kind of explain who you are and what you're here to talk about today. Start with Fanatiq.
My name is Fanatiq. I'm a streamer, run a little podcast, YouTuber, musician, and ex-professional video gamer. So I just like having conversations around topics that are challenging. I try my best to change the way everyone thinks. I think we can truly make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. That's my goal. And so that's why I like to engage in these conversations.
Very nice. All right. M87, take it away.
Dope. M87, aka Hard Thinking. I'm the host of Chicago Black Delegation Podcast. A podcast dedicated to the reshaping and reforming and the upwards trajectory of especially Black Americans. No shade to any other groups out there, but it's my opinion. In my opinion, my group especially needs a special attention. Right, we gotta really kind of bunker down and have these exact same sort of conversations and re-strategize something that re-strategize solutions for especially my community. But of course, I'm not outside of having these type of discussions amongst other groups because obviously we're gonna have to coalesce and find a solution together regardless. So I'm very happy to be here and I appreciate everybody especially Fanatiq and especially Pons for y'all for your graciousness to let me be a part of this conversation.
All right. Very nice. Zert, go ahead.
Hey guys, back again. Thanks for having me for another week. I am Zert. I'm one half of the content creation duo, DZ Speak. My other half, we just finished having a pretty interesting stream with Fanatiq, but he had to go and do some things as he's a very busy man. We react to a lot of things, either social, political, relationship, and anime. So I heard that we're here today to talk about how all lives matter. I'm kidding, no Candace. So yeah, I'm ready for today's discussion. I think I'm on the good guy's side.
The right side of history, as they say. Now,
yeah.
All right. I'm Pons. I go by just Pons. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram and all that stuff. I I've been streaming on and off for about 3 years. My big thing is just focusing on creating a positive upward direction for the next generation. I feel like they're kind of getting left behind, left to the wayside as we get into this technological age. You know, everybody's grown up at the age of 10. It's kind of scary, and no, there's no guidance. So here I am. All right. And with all that in mind, we're going to go into the first topic today. So let's see here. So we're going to talk about a very, this is going to be a touchy subject, but everybody try to bear with me here. We're going to talk about BLM, okay? And the framing that we're going to take about this as we go to the opening statements here. We want to talk about, did BLM fail or succeed, and why or why not? Think about that. Turn that around in your head, kind of a 45-second answer for that. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and just give a quick background. BLM, of course, Black Lives Matter, is a multifaceted movement that usually varies by state. There's individual groups per state usually. And usually the BLM movement consists of a few demands, requests or changes to be made within that municipality or state, and a few things that will be done, such as protests if those things are not taken care of. That's kind of like the general idea of BLM. And it's important to remember that they're not one organization, but rather each state is going to have its own organization. BLM is just kind of this umbrella term that we use for all these movements that are happening individually. And now that I've talked enough, let's go to Fanatiq, who was going to give his intro.
Yep. I think BLM was particularly effective. I think there's two different things. I've always felt the need to distinguish the movement from the organization, because I think BLM became a trending topic and everyone was using it, but I don't think most people ever joined a chapter. I don't think they ever collectivized and organized in a way. It was more so just about raising awareness about the fact that it seemed like society was pretty much acting as if Black lives did not matter. So do I think BLM was particularly effective at that, the movement? Yes. Now the organization, I don't believe in that organization. I think it was a grifting organization from the beginning, started immediately trying to focus on what they called was a form of intersectionality, in which they were wanting to hyper focus on Black trans women and getting rid of the Black family, the family structure, and all of those kind of things, which I thought were counterintuitive to what would actually best benefit Black people. So overall, I don't like the organization, but like the movement. We'll get into more. Open.
All right. M87, thoughts?
Best summarized briefly as good ideas, messy organization, and bad leadership, yet still working. From I guess the very inception, well, he's starting with Patrisse Cullors, who was one of the co-founders of the BLM movement. She does have a relatively rich history with activism and things along that nature. The thought patterns is a very, very, very leftist ideals, which can be, how you would say, some people would call starry-eyed, dreamer type mentality, but ultimately not realistic. But ultimately, she seemed to have started on the right foot of history, right? And then, one thing led to another, and she ended up with multi-million-dollar houses and spending a crap ton of the money on her brother's security and what was the other thing, consultations or whatever. So again, just bad leadership, but there is possibly still light at the end of the tunnel, but taking upon a very how do I put this? Taking on a direction that is very anti, patriarchy is. It's we're kind of doing a little. I feel like we're doing a little bit too much. So I'm gonna criticize them from that as well. So yeah.
Okay, if you were to give them a number rating on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being terrible organization should go away, 10 being the best.
Up to this point?
Up to this point, yeah.
No, it's way too much money they squandered. I'm gonna have to give them no higher than a 3. I mean, I like the hashtag that Patrisse Cullors created in 2013. It did start that grass movement. It started the grassroots movement going strong, and people did put this conversation at the forefront. Yeah, I think people all over the world became more caring about the black plight and black struggles in the prison industrial complex and stuff like that. That's the awareness is still useful. I do like the awareness, but like, to get all that money and then squander it is truly abhorrent. And yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that for right now. So yeah, 3,
Okay.
2.5, 3.
Okay. All right. Zerk, what are your thoughts on the BLM movement?
Yeah, I would say similar. It's great as a concept and a movement, not great as an organization. I don't know if now is the time to say why I think that is, or if that's for like later, like the next go around.
Spark notes.
Yeah, I just feel like the leadership is not solid. Put it that way. Like I feel like the demands, or even the statement, like I'm on the website and I'm like, what's the mission statement? And it's all this like kind of open-ended, esoteric, like, okay, yeah, I agree, but like, what are we supposed to do? Whereas like, I feel like civil rights movements of the past had clear intents and goals and demands.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to say anything that hasn't really already been said, but I think that the big thing is in my opinion, the BLM movement has come and making some real changes. But at the same time, it feels like there's a lot of ideas here that everyone's expressing that, well, there's the idea that you say you're going to change and that you say you're going to do these things, but then when the rubber meets the road, these things aren't actually happening. So
Right.
There's a lot of different reasons why we might think that is. Would anybody like to gesture their reasons as to why they think BLM is this well-meaning but disorganized kind of movement? That's what I'm hearing from everyone.
I think
Not me.
Oh, not Fanatiq. Sorry, I misspoke. Fanatiq, you differ from that.
Absolutely. I don't think that they were. Well, I mean, well-meaning is kind of like sure. Oh man, your mic is picking up quite a bit, Zerk. But yeah, I don't know about well-meaning, because I mean I can't speak to anyone's intentions per se. I disagree with almost all of their ideology. Like when one of them starts saying I'm a trained Marxist and I want to dismantle capitalism and dismantle the black family and so on and so forth, and focusing on the most marginalized, meaning black trans lives should be the first priority and all of these kinds of things. I thought it was absurd. It was absurd. I didn't like their ideology. It seemed really, really, really dumb. Then on top of that, when you start talking about like when the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is being discussed and Black Lives Matter comes out very verbally against it. So it's like, so we clearly have differences in intention. Theirs was to just abolish, it was just nonsense. They weren't in favor of it because it didn't do enough, and then we're suggesting things that they know would literally never pass from both the Democrats and the Republicans. And it's like, this bill is beautiful and you're against it. So I've never been a fan of them as an organization. I don't like any of them. I don't like them as individuals, and I don't like their ideologies. So the organization will forever suck to me. I just like the movement, the collective recognition that there are forces that are acting as if Black lives don't matter, and we need to make sure that message is spread very widely.
Okay.
Quick question, bro. Sorry. If you say something, Pons, you say you don't like them as individuals. Is that because they follow this ideology, or they subscribe to this ideology, where they join the chapters or all this other stuff? Or you and you're separating that from the or from the people on like Twitter that's just typing BLM and all that stuff, or I'm not BLM, but Black Lives Matter when something bad happens to a black person,
right? That's what I'm saying. I think the movement was very clearly distinct from the organization. As I said earlier, the average person who used the phrase BLM or Black Lives Matter, none of them had any idea of what the chapters or organization, or that there wasn't even an organization. There's always been two distinct things, and the movement was great. The organization was complete trash from the beginning.
So real quick. So when you say individuals, are you speaking specifically towards the people that are running the show at the top of the chapters, or you just talking about like the Joe Schmo that just walked in and thought they was going to make a change?
Like I said, I would imagine the individuals. We were talking about the organization, the people who ran it. Like
we're talking organization.
Yeah, they're trash, and their ideologies are trash.
Okay.
That's how I feel. I think it was obvious like that they did very corrupt things. Like they immediately hired their family members and like were like funneling money into them. Absolutely. They didn't really have any like actual idea for what to do with the money, and like outside of just funneling it to Democrats, which obviously wasn't as impactful as we would hope. So it, like before, like I can't think of anything effective that they did besides coin the phrase. I think what they did was actually cause even more harm, because when we were talking about Black Lives Matter, then you had all of these individuals who would then dismiss the slogan because of the organization, and then say, yeah, look at what they believe, look at what they're doing, look at, and so then by the time we were done, it was like, yeah, it just seemed like people were actually more antagonistic towards Black Lives Matter.
I would definitely agree that it caused for a lot of time wasted conversation regarding, where I'm not talking about the organization. Like it required the people to make the difference between the BLM as an organization and BLM as you just trying to do something to spread awareness to something that kind of happened to a Black person. And right-wing Republicans and people that just act like they don't know any better at the very least, they took that ball and ran with it, and they created a whole lot of like hoopla and wasted a whole lot of people's time. So I definitely agree that that was definitely a problem. That it's weaponized. Maybe I shouldn't say weaponized, but they used such a hashtag that can mean anything to a host of different people, and confuse people by attaching no organization to it. Like they should just left. They should have used let that hashtag live, right? But also created maybe, if anything, created their organization of a different name or something like that.
Sure.
I kind of feel this way.
But we only feel that way because they were trash. Like if they were actually good intended people and they were effective, then it'd be like, hey, it's fine to have this organization. And I think it's a great thing. But it's because they were trash is why we're like, I wish these things were completely divorced, so then I wouldn't even have to worry about the overlap or whatever. Like if the NAACP is crazily effective, we're not going to be mad if NAACP is trending anytime something good is happening and people are becoming more and more aware, right? Like, hey, we need to figure out how we can make the advancement of colored people who used to only be Black people. But yeah, like that would be a thing. But if they're trash, it's like, no, I don't like you using this name, because anytime I use this hashtag, it's starting to be associated with your socialist trash.
Okay.
Nobody in this room has said this or alluded to this, but there is a idea that goes around the BLM movement that is kind of associated with it, especially talked about on the right. Or I would guess it would say it would be a little bit on the extreme right, more on the hyper left. You have this idea that BLM was originally meant for Black people, by Black people, and then white people kind of came in, and their presence there was what caused these issues. Do you agree or disagree with that sentiment? Is there anything there at all? If anybody has anything compelling to say about that.
I'm so sorry. I was typing to my chat. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
So was I. My fault.
Can you please repeat it one more time, Ponce? I'm
Chat's
so sorry.
kind of heating up. No, that's okay. Chat's kind of heating up. There's this idea that goes around the BLM movement, talked about on the extreme left, that BLM was supposed to be for Black people, by Black people, and that the interference of white people in the matter has only gone to make things worse, that there shouldn't be any white people interfering with this. Obviously, nobody here's expressed that. There's nothing like that, but I want to talk about what everybody, hears when they think about this thing. It's a quite old thing. How would you respond to a criticism like that from an extreme left to your writing?
It's a bit new for me. It's a bit new for me, honestly. But how I will respond to that is typically how I respond to like most things that are like Black centered. Just in general. Like, I mean, for the most part, everybody outside of like, I would say the Black community will need to be vetted maybe just a tad bit more, because there could be a problem with like agents and stuff like that amongst the group and stuff like that, which, I mean, obviously some similar of a vetting process that would need to go along to people within the group as well. Not to say that agents can't be Black as well, or Sambos, or whatever you want to call them. But like I said, I mean, with some little extra vetting, you know what I mean? I'm not completely antagonistic against like non-Black people, you know what I'm saying? If they understand that, Black people have been, Black Americans, ADOS, FBA, whatever you want to call them, if they understand that we have been, treated wrongly or unjustly in this nation, they want to do something to help. I'll hear them out, you know what I mean, and I would,
Right.
I would test them, you know what I mean. But
Okay.
that's all I'm trying to say. Like, just give them an extra layer of vetting if you're really like worried about something like that, right?
Sure, I think that's fair. Zerk, you were gonna speak up?
Yeah, okay, so I think that allyship is important. I think there's a right way to go about it. And I think that as long as non-Black allies understand the way to go about it and stay in their lane, it can actually be tremendously helpful. Reason being, right? If we are trying to fight oppression, that implies an oppressor. And we have identified the oppressor. The only reason the oppressor is able to oppress is because they hold the power. So the only way really we can get power non-violently is for the oppressor to grant said power. And so by that token, if they don't want to listen to us because we're us, the oppressed, they might be more likely to listen to somebody who looks like them and who shares their worldview. And so like white allies could potentially get through to and bring around other, all lives matter people, because they can come at them from an angle that we can't come at them from because we don't understand how their minds work, so to speak.
Okay. I think that's a good transition into the next question I think I would have, which is, of course, when you think of Black Lives Matter, the very next thing most people think of is All Lives Matter. It's another movement that sprouted around the same time. And some would say that it's a separate movement. Some would say that it's inherently tied to the BLM movement. Do you think that ALM has any place in a world with BLM? Or do you think that these things can coexist? Can they not? What's the reasoning?
Well, ALM's not a thing because ALM can't be a thing until BLM. So.
Okay.
So here's the
like just a non-start thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think All Lives Matter was a really disgusting thing, and it's very, very dismissive. And I've heard these analogies before, and I think that they're really on point. Someone said basically, imagine you're sitting at a dinner table with you and your family members, and they're doling out plates to everyone, and doling out food to everyone, and you don't get your fair share of food. You don't get any food at all. And so then you're sitting at the table and you say, hey, I deserve a fair share of the food. And then someone responds to you, like your dad responds to you and says, everyone deserves a fair share of the food. And it's like, well, yes, it's true that everyone deserves a fair share of the food, but I'm mentioning this specifically because I was left out. So when you say everyone deserves a fair share of food, that's a true statement that dismisses the fact that I'm calling attention to the fact that I specifically deserve a fair share of the food and I'm not getting it. In the same sense, when we mention Black Lives Matter, it's basically saying society is acting as if Black lives don't matter, which is evidenced by the fact that they don't hold these people accountable when Black people are victimized. When you say all lives matter, it almost equates the two. You're basically saying Black lives are the same as all lives. But if Black lives were the same as all lives and we mattered evidently in society, we wouldn't feel the need to specify specifically that. Likewise, if I hurt my toe and I say, ouch, my toe, someone can make the statement, well, all of your body should feel good, but that doesn't, I'm specifically trying to address the thing that got hurt. And so it's a very dismissive thing. Right. I think it's a very dismissive thing. I'm not a fan of it. And so I always hated All Lives Matter. And here's the crazy thing about it, lastly. You'll find, and I found this, all of the people who are willing to say All Lives Matter in response to Black Lives Matter, every time when you would ask them, do Blue Lives Matter, they would say yes. And so I remember there was a point in time where I was saying that on Facebook on a regular basis. You felt the need to to mention All Lives Matter in response to Blue Lives Matter. In response to Black Lives Matter, but you didn't feel that need when you mentioned Blue Lives Matter. When you mention Blue Lives Matter, it's because you're saying, hey, these lives are important and they're under attack. In the same sense, we're saying the same thing with Black Lives Matter, but you intentionally distort what we mean with Black Lives Matter. It's emotional and it's disgusting and it's dismissive.
Damn. All right. Fair. Yeah, I think.
There's
Go
so
ahead.
many analogies for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of analogies. I think the important thing to remember is that these things are inherently emotional. Sometimes we want to suck all the emotion out of it and treat it like it's only a logical argument. Sometimes we want to suck all the logic out of it and treat it like it's only an emotional argument. There's two sides to it. And I think that ALM is a very clearly emotional response, right? You're seeing, oh, well, you're saying that these people matter. Well, what about these people who also matter? I don't know if it's intended to be whataboutism, but that's kind of the idea of whataboutism is, hey, here's this thing. Well, what about this other thing that's also a real thing? Well, yeah, that thing is real, but nobody's talking about that thing right now. It reminds me a lot of, I see this in debates a lot. People often get confused when you compare things. They treat it like you're saying that they're the same. Like an apple can't be compared to an orange. Now you can compare an apple to an orange. There's ways that they're the same. There's ways that they're different. I don't know what the disconnect is, but I see it a lot with, especially with BLM and ALM. What would you say to someone they're sitting in the audience and they've kind of, they kind of found ALM first. They never heard about BLM. They went to college. They saw some ALM stuff. Maybe they grew up in Kentucky. And now they're here on this stream right now and they're watching this and they're saying, well, hold on. I'm not bigoted because I like this thing. I'm not supporting something that's bad because I'm a part of this thing. I just think that all lives matter. I saw this movement. It's cool. What would you say to those people?
I mean, it's what I just said, right? Like, all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. So if you want to truly, I want to believe that. Like, we should all want to be ALM. The issue is we cannot right now. We have to address BLM. We have to fix that. To use a Fanatiq analogy, right? Like, you have to, if my arm is broken, you can't be like, well, what about your general health? You have to heal my arm before you worry about my general health. So, like, that's what I would say to them. Like, you have to, if you really believe in all lives matter, then you need to start with Black Lives Matter, and we need to fix this. And then we can all say that and agree on it, and it won't be dismissive.
Damn, okay.
I would also say this. If a person literally like only heard all lives matter, I would understand why they came to that slogan, but then they would need to be educated, right? Like, you'd have to explain to them, all lives matter was not a common phrase in any capacity until Black Lives Matter first came into being. And when Black Lives Matter came into being, specifically to show the disregard that society had for Black lives, which was evidenced by the fact that they refused to indict people like George Zimmerman, who killed a boy following him despite policemen telling him to back off and so on and so forth. When you have those kind of situations where we can get into all of the various other forms of systemic oppression aimed directly at blacks, then we should be able to say, hey, Black Lives Matter. Like, we matter too. That's what's implied with the Black Lives Matter. It's a too. So then when someone weaponizes and says all lives matter, using the analogy I gave earlier, it's literally intended to dismiss. So then, even though that wasn't what you understood it to mean, this is what this effectively does, and this is why I think it's problematic. And I think you just have to be educated about that. I can't fault you for not knowing better in the minute, like immediately, because if that's all you've seen, like maybe you've only listened to Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder and things like that, these are going to be the things that you're informed about. So I understand where it comes from. The problem only comes is when, after we recognize you're uninformed, we lead you to the correct information so that you can see why it's harmful to do what you're doing, and you decide to maintain it. Is it problematic? Aside from that, I understand why you would say that, because all lives do matter, in my opinion. I just realized that not all people share that sentiment, as evidenced by the ongoing oppression against Black people.
All right. Okay. M87, you're going to say something?
Well, yeah. He said what I was gonna say in some for the most part. But I mean, for the most part, yeah. This is when somebody is simply uninformed, or I mean, you can't really fault somebody for being ignorant for the most part. Everybody got their own lives and their own paths. If their path didn't stumble them, if BLM and this concept behind it and the whole struggle around it was not a part of their path, then I mean, it's just up to us to again educate them on the matter, or why BLM exists and why ALM was a direct emotional response to BLM. I mean, and it'll just be up to them to, you know, digest and accept the information. But I mean, I don't know what else to say. The many times that situation has happened to me, was kind of met with strife. You know what I mean? And like the conversation lasts a little bit longer than it needs to, because people are just, I mean, you know, people like to latch on to the first person that told them something. So that's just going to be the challenging part. Creating this convincing, this persuasive argument.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would say if, you know, we grow up, we hear a lot of the times, are you going to choose this or that? Are you going to believe in this or are you going to believe in that? Life is not a binary. The older you get, the more you're going to see that. Life has gradient. Life has divergent meanings sometimes for different people. When someone tells you to choose this or that, that should be a red flag to look at that thing more closely and to kind of get the bigger picture of it. It's not ALM or BLM. Both of these things, even though one of them is created in a reactionary, and some might say even a gross way, both of them are aiming in a weird way for the same kind of thing. And the important thing is to look for that thing and appeal to that. A person who's ALM isn't saying, you know, oh, I just don't like black people. No, it's about the other people. It's about everyone but black people. No, they're not making a choice. We're taking two different sides of what is one argument. And we're, unfortunately, a lot of the times people get lost in the sauce. But if you run into someone who's BLM or ALM, just remember that it's not that they believe the opposite of what you believe. It's that you both believe in a circular way. You're just going in different directions. But when you reach the top, you're going to be in the same place.
But I want to say that only applies to that person that you said that was never really familiar with Black Lives Matter and really only got whatever and so on and so forth. But I don't think that's the experience for most people. I think when it came to All Lives Matter, I think the vast majority of that movement was literally rooted in antagonism towards Black Lives Matter. And
I've never heard of a person that knows about one but not the other.
Right. And I feel like I experienced this because almost every single person that I tried to engage in that way, when I would ask them, hey, wait a minute, you felt the need to distinguish All Lives Matter when in response to Black Lives Matter, but you're willing to say Blue Lives Matter. Explain that to me, right? And every time I did that, then they would just try to obfuscate and be like, hey, I'm not racist. Like I did it. And they would never actually engage with the thing that I was saying. And it started to feel like willful ignorance. I think there are a large amount of people who are informed and know of both and are intentionally weaponizing those things, specifically like Tucker Carlson, Chris, you know, just a few Republican pundits. Candace Owens knew better. If she didn't know better, then she wouldn't have been comfortable wearing that shirt that said White Lives Matter. The reason she wore that White Lives Matter was because she had the argument. I'm not saying that other lives don't matter. I'm just saying White Lives Matter too. And it's like, well, if you understand that, then you wouldn't feel offended by the phrase Black Lives Matter. You could apply that exact same logic. You'd have no problem applying it to the White Lives Matter shirt in antagonism, but you have a problem with us just making the Black Lives Matter statement. So it just feels like it's always weaponized. It's rare that I think a person can truly come to the All Lives Matter statement and truly be informed. I think it's either rooted in ignorance or it's rooted in antagonism.
Fair enough. I think there might be some people at colleges who their local speaker comes in and has a few things to say on the BLM movement, and you never really do any looking in for yourself, and you might have this impression that it's a bunch of crazy people. But that can happen with anything. It's like you said, it's once you learn that knowledge, what do you do next? And that's really the important part here. I'd hope that people aren't going to sit here and learn about both and then still want to take a side on it, really, because even all of us here are saying, look, it's not like BLM, this movement is like this, or rather BLM, the organization, is like this amazing organization that's getting all this work done. But at least the movement is like, it's on logical grounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now, one last thing. I don't know about last thing, but I'm saying, like, I think even the idea of like needing to create that distinction is because, again, the organization didn't do the vast majority of protests were not organized by BLM, the organization. The vast majority of protests were spontaneous, that erupted like immediately in response towards like different levels of harm that were happening by like police officers or things like that. And the local community gets together and decides, we're not standing for this. And then they're like hyper reactive, right? So that's how those things were happening. It still wasn't the organization. So it's like, I mean, And again, most of those people that were like doing those things, like when when they saw
think
an
that's
officer
part of
kill
the problem.
somebody, they weren't doing it because BLM said it. They didn't even, half of them weren't even using the hashtag. They're just out there marching and demonstrating. It was online community that was using the hashtag like to associate this thing. But in reality, the organization had very little power. Why were you saying that's a problem, Zerk?
No, yeah, I think part of the problem, and this is what I meant by like the organization having bad organization, is that like, okay, you have, let's just use an easy example. You have Martin Luther King. He's like, we're going to do a 1 million man march. It's on this date. It's in Washington. This is our goal. This is what we're doing on that day. BLM was just like, okay, something happened in some city that's not my city, and we're mad about it because it's on the internet, which we should be mad about it. But now we're going to go to our local, precinct or our local city hall and demand that they do something. They can't, the city of Miami, where I live, can't do anything about, what happened to somebody in New York. Like, you get what I'm saying? It's like, what, we were just outside. And like during quarantine, it's like, yeah, be mad, but like we need to be either sending support to where it happened, going to where it happened to march there, and having a specific, okay, we demand these officers be brought to justice. Clear demand, clear leader, right? We can say Martin Luther King, we can say Malcolm X, we can say, love him or hate him, Al Sharpton. Like those were civil rights names and leaders. I can't tell you any BLM leader. I know about the one lady who like took all those millions of dollars. I still don't know her name. I can't tell you what she said about anything ever. Like, who are the leaders? Where are they at? Like, those people need to be at the head, conducting, driving the beast, like using the power for good, not just randomly we're out here. While I agree with the sentiment.
I like what you're saying, Zerk. I just want to make some brief corrections there. Louis Farrakhan was the guy that organized the 1 Million Man March, and the woman you're referring to is Patrisse Cullors.
Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Sorry.
Yeah, he's talking about the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
True.
Yeah, because those two are always. I do the same exact thing. I think there's always like this overlap. I think a lot of people don't even know that there were two marches. Like most people think the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom is the 1 Million Man March. Those are two distinct things. One of them was like in the 90s, I want to say.
Just want the viewers here to not get confused and stuff like that. No disrespect, no shade.
Of course. Yeah. But I mean, yes, you know her name. The vast majority of people who use the hashtag Black Lives Matter have no idea who she is, what her name is, or who any of the other women are. Most people have no idea. Is it unfortunate? Did they have good enough ideas that they should be used as leaders?
The reason I say it's unfortunate because that means that there's a severe lack of research before we're supporting these organizations.
Well, yeah,
granted, we understand this organization,
but I feel like 90% of people using the hashtag didn't support the organization; they just supported the movement. I think the vast majority of people using the hashtag Black Lives Matter had literally no idea there even was an organization. I didn't find out there was an organization.
Yeah, they were marching in Japan,
right? I didn't find out there was
I'm thinking about black people. I'm
black. I didn't know that the organization existed until 2020. And I think that's the case for the vast majority of people. Most people had no idea there was an organization. It trended on Twitter, not since actual activists. Right. Since 2013 after Trayvon Martin, not actual activists. It wasn't a widespread I mean, hell, I want to say at their absolute maximum ever, I think they had like 20,000 members. 20,000 members. There were over 1 million tweets during the first two trends of the thing, and they only had 20,000 members. The people weren't joining the organization. People didn't know what that even was. The vast majority of people.
Yeah. Do you know what year that was when they interrupted Bernie Sanders thing over in was it Seattle?
I have no idea. I would imagine 2016
No, it was like 2020. It was during when he was trying to become the Democratic candidate over Biden just now.
It was 2015 in Ferguson.
Yeah, I can say it's
over Hillary. Sorry.
Yeah, like that.
I thought it was the last time, not the time before.
He didn't.
That's part.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that was like their big moment at that time as an organization. But I don't know if it didn't land on anybody's ears, then it just is what it is. It wasn't a powerful enough of a statement.
Right.
Like it did get media attention. It did make people angry, especially Democrats.
I see, and I don't even know anything about that in that situation, to be honest.
Yeah.
Why do you say especially Democrats?
To be fair, you said something really important, Fanatic. You said at the time, and I do this all the fucking time. Can we curse?
Yeah. Are you sure?
Too late.
I was just saying, like, I do this all the time. I forget about how ignorant I was at a certain time period. Like, I do a whole lot of research, like, lately, and I'm like, and I never think about what my mind space was, where my mind was during that time. But yeah, I'm pretty much sure that I didn't know anything about any sort of organization.
Right.
Until Black Lives Matter actually started to get some money. You know what I'm saying? Which is 2020.
Right. And I think that's the case for most of us. And I don't even think most of us would have even found out had it not been for the killing of George Floyd. And in that way, it feels to me a lot like BLM, the movement, really kind of just grifted and took a lot of the momentum from that movement and then like ended up like funneling it into themselves, but weren't actually trying to do anything for Black people. And in reality, I feel like, again, there was a lot of effective change that came from the movement, from those marches, from those riots, right? Like those things were incredibly effective. We saw at state level legislation passed for police reform that was some of the most progressive police reform that had been passed in my entire life, and the life of my mother, right? So like it had been a very long time since we saw things like that. It happened in Chicago and various other places. So we saw the response to some of those movements and some of those riots and things. We saw that. That's what Black Lives Matter, the movement, did. But as far as the organization, they literally just put money into Democrats' hands. And I don't know that, like, I'm still waiting to see when Democrats actually wield their power to do actually the positive things that they need to. I mean, you'll get all the executive orders in the form of benign neglect when it comes towards the Stop Asian Hate movement, which I thought was largely disrespectful. I thought when you have that, you have all their support for the LGBTQ movement, all sorts of executive orders signed by Biden on first day regarding that. You'll find things to like address Latinos. You'll find things to address literally everyone besides Black folks. Democrats practice benign neglect. So to me, I don't think that Black Lives Matter, the organization, ever did anything effective. Instead, I think they armed the people in making everyone feel like it was a Marxist movement. And I remember they tried to do that during the Civil Rights movement in the 1960s. And they were saying, hey, these Black people are socialists, because I do believe that, there were a few people who had like some sort of sympathies towards some socialism. And so then they tried to dismiss the entire Civil Rights movement as a communist plot. That's what they tried to do. But now BLM, the organization, armed people with that dismissal. It was disgusting.
Sorry, I will say I might not have known exactly that it started in 2013, but I did know about it before 2020 because I guess it started with Trayvon Martin, but like I knew like Mike Brown, Eric Garner, like the list was long before George Floyd. It was just like I feel like there was a lull. And then we all like woke up during George Floyd because we had nothing else to do because we were all stuck inside. But I do know it predated 2020. I just didn't know it was as far back as, I remember the Trayvon stuff, but I didn't remember like specifically, this is when BLM started.
Right, but you knew there was an organization before then, you're saying?
Yeah.
When did you first come into that information?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was around the time of like, not during Trayvon, but like when one of the other people between Trayvon and George.
Did you have interest in joining the organization?
No, I was just kind of using the hashtag online, like you said.
Okay. I think that was a common Black experience.
Because I was already, prevalent. I was active at that time in already a historically Black organization. So it was like, we were already doing our thing. So we just had to like, say Black Lives Matter on top of whatever we were already doing.
Right. That makes sense.
It's kind of bizarre though, because like I know the BLM hashtag started in 2013, but it's like did the formation of the organization actually start the same day?
Same year. For sure it did.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay, so then the next question, I think, really tying this all up with a bow. BLM, thumbs up. We keep it. We rename it. Maybe get some new leaders in there. Change, lots of change. Everybody wants change, but we keep the idea of BLM. And option B is we take it out to pasture and shoot it and we come up with a new idea, new slogan. Is BLM recoverable, or is the beast too infected? We have to move on to something else.
So
let's go one at a time. I'll go ahead, M87.
Thank you, appreciate it. So I want to kind of start things by saying that Patrisse Cullors did step down from founding the BLM. Not so certain about her wife or the other guy. The other guy probably still in there. I definitely forgot his name, but I believe he had a conversation with what's that little woman name? Candace Owens a couple times. But regardless, I'm not particularly agreeing with Fanatiq and saying that the whole movement is like complete trash. For the reason being, the different chapters. There seems to be a lot of disorganization by way of malcommunication, because you just pull up my notes real quick here. There was actually like that whole debacle with her spending all that money on her, the houses and her brother and stuff like that. It's actually read right here that some BLM activists accuse her of monopolizing and capitalizing our fight. So everything you're kind of saying, Fanatiq, these some BLM activists were making the same claims against Patrisse Cullors. And then they say 10 local chapters of the foundation claim that Cullors became its executive director against the will of most chapters without their knowledge. So there's a lot of miscommunication going on within the BLM movement. And with Patrisse Cullors gone and her wife gone, that can create something that's I would say positive for Black people. Now, albeit they are trying to share the limelight with trans struggles, with the LGBT struggles and stuff like that. But it's not to say that I don't believe that organized, right, a just and a right standing, good faith collection of people can't rub their bellies and pat their heads. You know what I mean? So like I'm on this site right now, and anybody can kind of check this out. But like they're according to their own site, like they started defund the police movement, where it isn't necessarily taking all the money away from police, but it's just inciting conversations regarding taking another look at how much money we're giving the police and just how effective police is.
But see, this is what I'm saying though. Like, okay, defund the police.
He's giving his closing. You just let him do it, and then you.
I'm so sorry. So sorry.
So I'm just there's a number of things: anti-voter suppression, police oversight, Medicare for all. I mean, I'm not gonna agree with everything here, right? But I'm just saying, like, these are definitely some things that are definitely pro Black people, like specifically, right? And like I said, according to some of the policies that they've actually made some strides in, this stuff isn't really particularly specific towards LGBT folks. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, like, I do believe this group can turn the ship around. You know what I mean? Under the right rulership, under good communication. If everything goes right, if under the perfect circumstances, how likely that could be. I think this could definitely be something that's absolutely beneficial for Black Americans, but it needs to stay on course, and it needs to stay vet the people that are at the top of the leadership.
Okay, Zerk.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting there. I didn't realize it was like final. What I was saying is that is what I was getting at from the beginning as well. Like, you say something like defund the police, like, okay, we agree with that, but then they don't really go into detail from there. It's like, okay, you defund them, and they're like, well, what are you gonna do with it? Oh, put it back into the city. Okay, where? In what way? Like, what are we starting new entities? Are we bolstering existing entities? How much of the defunded money will be allocated to each of these things? Like, those are I feel like they're never fully fleshed out. And so it's like, I can get behind the idea, but there is no executive or leader who hashes this out and says, here it is, point by point, bullet by bullet. So I feel like at least the organization should maybe even be, they should have elected officials. The people in the organization should vote for who they want their leader to be based on what they want their policies to be. Just like our system of government, just like the organization I belong to, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Like, we have chapter leaders, we have district leaders, we have and then we have our our president, basically, that's over the whole world, all the chapters in the world. But they're all elected, they're all voted at the local level, just like government. They start small and they get to that point. It shouldn't just be somebody who's like, well, I'm the loudest person in the room, so I'm the leader, or it was my idea, so I'm automatically the leader, and I am there like indefinitely. I think that is probably the issue. And another thing too, and I noticed this during my time in the fighting game community as a commentator, I went to college for television and radio broadcasts. Like, I'm trained to do commentary, and I started noticing I was getting picked over for gigs. And when I would look, the reason why would be the person who was picked over me just had more Twitter followers. And so now it would be TikTok. Whoever's the loudest on social media, they got Twitter followers, Instagram followers, TikTok followers. That's who people are going to listen to. So they might not even be a part of the organization, but people think that they represent the organization because they just have the most clicks. Maybe even what BLM needs to do is put money into their marketing to make sure they have the most clicks, the official people have the most clicks, and the right ideas have the most clicks. Because unfortunately, that's what wins today. It's not who's best at it or who's right, it's who has the most clicks.
Okay.
My closing on this, I'm gonna respond to both of what you guys were saying. Well, first off, to the idea, can it be reformed and so on and so forth? I'm gonna say I don't think it really can be, because I think honestly, I think the genetics fallacy will always cause people to never support Black Lives Matter. The genetics fallacy is the idea of dismissing something because of its origins. And I think people will always look at it and say, nope, it came from those socialist Marxist idiots, and so we don't want anything to do with it. And I'm kind of inclined to agree with them. Because I would imagine most of the people who did join it probably had sympathies to their stupidity. And so, yeah, we're going to say nah on that one. And then I just want to be clear, because you kind of misquoted me. No, I know it wasn't intentional. I did not say the entire movement was trash. I said the organization was trash, not the movement. I've always made those two things very, very distinct. Now, even if your justification for why the whole organization is probably not trash, but then you say, well, no, it's just that the heads and leaders and rulers of the organization were doing all these things and not being able to communicate to the rest of the chapters of that organization, then that means that the function of that organization is trash. Because if there's no communication within the organization, so they all have to go on board with these people who are just funneling money into their family members and buying property and funneling money to Democrats while actually not getting any of the changes they need to and decrying things like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, then yeah, no, we can't possibly call that organization good. And maybe you might have individual disconnected chapters, and if it's a completely disorganized thing, then maybe some chapters might have done some small and effective things, but their association with that organization is already going to create an uphill battle because these reasonable people don't like that organization. So I think that organization is just complete trash. Lastly, you mentioned, Dirk, that there was a bunch of major progressive policies and stuff like that. Like or no, maybe it wasn't just Dirk, it was Higher Thinking, like in saying like, yeah, man, they got, they wanted to defund the police and they wanted all of these, they wanted, whatever. Their policies, the things that generate their policies are trash. If the reason why you like these policies is because you want to abolish capitalism and get to socialism, I consider that to be trash and bad-brained. So no, I can't support that. Do I believe in greater social programs and incorporating socialism into a capitalist structure so that we can take care of the cracks? Absolutely. I think that makes all the sense in the freaking world. Why wouldn't we do that? I don't like the idea of telling a 75-year-old person you can no longer work, so you're just going to go ahead and starve to death. I don't like telling a person who has an untimely death of a husband who's the breadwinner in a family and to tell a stay-at-home mom, yeah, you better get to work immediately or else you just can't eat. I think temporary assistance to needy families makes sense. Maybe some untimely, unhealthy, or unfortunate early pregnancy of a teenager. I like the idea of WIC or other programs like that that to help that person get on their feet. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Would I encourage any of those things? Absolutely not. But do I think that we as a system need to be able to say there will be unfortunate circumstances that we need to make sure that we cover for, to make sure that the best outcomes happen for all of the human beings within our society? Absolutely, which is why I think we need better social programs, and we need a great structure to be able to support those social programs, which is capitalism. When your whole point is socialistic and you want to tear down the entire system and you're a Marxist, and then when we're actually talking about reasonable progress like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and you want to talk about no, just abolish the police, yeah, you can miss me. And that's what those idiots were doing. They're not good. I don't like anything to do with it, and I don't want them being reformed, because for sure, forever, the opposite side is always going to look at them as trash. They're always going to be like, yeah, no. BLM is responsible for the riots, even though the vast majority of the protests were peaceful. The vast majority of participants weren't actually members or even aware of the organization, but they're always going to have that arming, and I don't want anything to do with that. It's just it's inherently problematic. I think we need a new organization altogether.
Damn. All right, mic drop. Okay. Before we go to the next topic, we're going to take a quick break. Everybody go to the bathroom, fill up your waters, react to people calling you out in the chat.
It must be me.
No. I don't know.
Oh no, it's me. Some guy randomly came in and said, we know stuff about politics, but nothing about lifting weights or fighting. And I'm like, I know about both of those things, so try again. Try again, homie. Bro, he's like, how much you bench, bro? Like, hello?
Yeah. This is the third time they're asking it. They're thirsting for that number so bad.
Yeah, I don't have my current bench max, but like, again, like we were talking about, he said we don't know about lifting weights. Like, I can know everything about lifting weights. That doesn't mean I can bench 500 pounds. Like, hello? There's Olympic powerlifters who can't bench that. So what's your point?
This is what I gotta say.
Yeah, 100%. Yo, Fanatiq, you're muted.
Oh no, I had it more, bro.
No.
Oh, I'm not re-saying it now. It's over. I already delivered it. I can't do it.
Nah, but we could sanction a fight though. Like,
visible dunks.
Stay a weight class, you know, welterweight, featherweight.
Throw some hands with them niggas, man. I see you.
No, I'm saying I can make weight. I can make weight and I can train and we could set it up and we can even stream it. Like,
I'm gonna be back. We got to
get a rep
on time.
Get gloves.
Good luck. I have the timer going.
All right. Pause. You can go in and take it away.
All right, guys, welcome back. So we were going down the list and seeing how much everybody could bench, starting with me. No. So we're gonna go to the next topic now. Let's take a look here. This one I am quite excited for. So we're all adults here. What are some of the biggest issues threatening our youth? And this is going to be, it doesn't have to be under the age of 18, just our youth, the young adults, the teenagers. What are the biggest things threatening our youth? And what can we do, pardon me, what can we do to help? Let's go in reverse order this time. Let's start it off with Zerk.
Okay. At the risk of sounding like a boomer here, I'm gonna sound like a boomer and then I'm gonna qualify it so that I won't sound like a boomer. The biggest issues facing our youth, social media. Not only do we have all of the studies that say that like social media has lowered our attention spans and created increased depression because we see like people's fake lives and we think that our lives should be that, but also just the existence of the block button, I think, is also highly detrimental because it removes the ability of a young person to engage with ideas that they find offensive. And if they're going to get to a point in their adult life where they're going to have to face these things and they're not going to be able to do anything but curl up in a ball. And I think that can cause serious ramifications in society when it literally can't function because everybody needs a safe space and they can't hit a block button in real life.
Very interesting. Okay. M87?
Yeah, I like it. I was gonna say more so social media / technology. I would say maybe technology was like maybe technology was like yesteryear's big problem, and now it's just mostly social media. I think we definitely in a time period where we need to really embrace technology and be ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, social media is like it's the big. I would argue it would be a big problem right now. Mostly just due to the fact that along with this black button concept, but oh man, it's gonna be tough to say. Something like a what do you call what is this thing called, a bubble, like your echo chamber. People,
Epistemic bubble and echo chambers, those are slightly two different things, but I was just trying to help.
we can get in that, but when I say echo chamber, I'm just talking about you found like your group of online compadres and stuff like that, right? And then whatever you say is like these people are like essentially agree with you, and it just becomes a like reverberation of like the same ideas over and over again, and then it just creates like a false reality where you think this is how society is should be going, despite you not venturing outside of that thought bubble, that echo chamber, to contend with the ideas that you as you has mentioned as offensive. That's the word that you used, and that's obviously the problem. That's like I would argue that that's like very anti like solution oriented. Like we definitely have to contend with ideas that go against our own, for better or for worse. So that's mostly my biggest gripe with it, just the inability to cope with like alternative ideas that you just said, but the likelihood of people trying to find or settling in to some sort of an echo chamber. And I would like for you to kind of like explain what the difference is between the echo chamber and what you just know. I never heard that I never heard that terminology before.
We'll definitely get into that in a second.
Yeah.
First, Fanatiq.
I would say that the biggest issue facing youth today is just, lack of knowledge of who Jesus Christ is. They need to come to know the Son of God. And I think we see like all the reverberations of that in the sense that like, obviously they've done all the things to get rid of like church and school. And a lot of people have like completely disconnected from faith. And I think because people have adapted like a non like the spirituality that isn't like really connected to like the truth. And then what ends up happening, a lot of people are like nominally Christian but not actually Christians. And then like the first instance or belief of Christianity that they get is white evangelicals, or then you have the Catholic Church, and then and all those molestations and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll have to it just what really should be capturing people and like helping them to understand a better moral system and to love like their neighbor and all those kinds of things. Instead, people get stuck on just these other systems that don't actually hold up. And so I think that stuff is like really, I think that's probably the number one. From a secular perspective, I would say probably just the hyper focus on individuality and like a less of a connection of family. Definitely.
Okay. We're going to get into this in a second. There's a lot of I want to try to join these two ideas a little bit really quick. I think that there's two things that are big affecting youth right now. Two things that are big time affecting the youth, and they're conflicting. They're coming together to make a bigger problem. The first is that every single group, every single idea now, there's a community for it. And they'll support you, and they'll be your friend, and they'll tell you that what you're doing is right. And the echo chamber that M87 is talking about exactly feeds into that. You have these, no matter what you believe, if you believe that black people are not genetically similar to white people, there's a community for you that will love and accept you in a Discord, and you can talk to them every night. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if these people believe something crazy or asinine or something that isn't founded on logic. If you're a young person, you find an in-group that wants to listen to you and communicate with you and enjoy Friday night movies with you and just be your friend, you're going to be more likely to believe those things. It doesn't matter what the actual idea is. And then the second problem, I think, is that there are no leaders. There are no people who are coming out for the youth specifically and saying, I'm here to lead you. You have people like Andrew Tate who say, I'm leading all men. You have people like Alex Jones who say, I'm leading all free thinkers. There's nobody who says, I'm leading children. I'm leading the people who seriously need help right now. They're growing up in a world where you can learn everything instantly at the age of 10, because all you have to know how to do is Google, and a 10-year-old is certainly competent enough to Google. You can ruin your brain. You can learn things that you cannot unlearn. You can, learn truths that are not meant to be learned. And I think all of these things coming together, and then you have these groups where there's no leaders to take you away from those groups. I think it leads to this swirling effect where once you learn about one group, once you take that first step, watch that first 4chan post, you can actually see the downward spiral in real time as someone becomes more and more radicalized, unfortunately. And the way those two things happen are with the bubbles and the echo chambers. So, sir, why don't you inform us what's the difference between a bubble and an echo chamber? Oh, sorry, M87, you had something to say?
I'm so sorry. I wanted to add like one additional detail to what I kind of already presented. I just kind of forgot why I even mentioned it. Just a little bit a gripe against like the technology aspect of it, and it's really just cell phones in the school. You know what I'm saying? Like teachers are having like a significant problem against kids like using their using their cell phones during class to be another distraction, and just generally just things like that. Like I just believe that's kind of a big problem, and it's keeping kids from being properly educated.
Okay. Zerk, you want to explain that real quick?
Okay, yeah.
Bubble and echo chamber.
I can give you the short answer, or I can just read the definitions to you guys, which they're not super long.
Synthesize it. What is your tell it to me like I've never. I don't know these concepts. Teach it to me.
So an epistemic bubble is like, okay, you hold these certain beliefs because the people around you hold them, but you're not actively excluding conflicting information. You just don't come across it because of the bubble that you guys reside in. An echo chamber is where you literally go away from, you actively block out information that conflicts with your beliefs because it somehow hurts you. It creates cognitive dissonance. You don't like it, you can't handle it. And so you specifically, like you said, you find that community online that will accept you, and you just shut everybody else out because these people accept me, and you just allow them to keep espousing the same thing.
So to make sure,
so one's intent, it's about intent. It's once you're doing it actively, and when you're doing it passively.
So to make sure I understand it really quick, kind of like what we talked about earlier, where you said that there's people, or what I said, sometimes there's people who grew up and they've never learned about BLM. It's not that they're opposed to the idea, it's that they're in this bubble and they just haven't had the exposure. Whereas someone who says, no, I know BLM and I am ALM, I'm very against that. That's someone who's in the echo chamber. They see the thing, they're specifically pushing their own idea. Okay, I understand now. Go ahead, M87. And then
I was just going to ask you, can you please repeat that other term again so I can put it in my notes to study later?
Epistemic bubble.
Epistemic,
like in epistemology.
I like that because it's not the system, it is the virtue of being in the system. That's cool.
Right.
It's a good term.
Epistemic, what again?
Bubble,
thank you.
Okay, and then the second part of this question is, what are we going to do about it? And I see people are very eager to talk about what we're going to do about it. So, Fanatiq, what are your thoughts on what to do about it? Do we take them to church?
No, I failed there. I forgot. It was two-pronged, and I didn't mention the how. So for me, I think the how really boils down to parents developing individual relationships with God. And then I would say that instilling those values inside of your children. Like, I went to church, aka cult, at a very young age, but I think what the thing that made me develop my true relationship with God that I have now was seeing it first in my mother and then eventually in my father, right? Where like we had devotion at like a really, really young age. Like before we would go to school in the morning, we would all have to go into my mom's room. We would pray as a family, collectively, and then we would go off to school. Before we went to bed at night, we would get together as a family. She'd read some scriptures, read a Christian book, like portions of it. We were going for a long time, a story called Daniel in the Catacombs. I remember that. And then like that was what it was. And then I saw it being lived because I believe that my mother had a very true understanding of who Jesus Christ was. And my grandmother had that same type of thing and instilled it in my mother. And so I really do feel like it really comes from the parents. But I feel like a lot of times in society, we've gotten into this mentality that we just really kind of feel like society is supposed to teach our children. And we never make those statements, but it's evident in the sense that we send kids off to school and then parents don't want to assist the kids when it comes to education. It's not like the parent is sitting there like, hey, let me see what you're studying and I'm going to help you with your homework and I'm going to insist and so on and so forth and I'm going to give you my own education beforehand and like complement the education. It's just like, nope, you go to school, that's where you learn. And when you're not at school and you don't have homework that's assigned by your teacher, I'm never going to do that. Whereas to the opposite, my mother made sure all of her children were reading before they got into kindergarten. So by the time we hit first grade, we were all at a minimum of second to third grade level, right? Minimum. So I think it's about instilling those values. But a lot of times we've like taken our hands off. We believe we're connected because of social media and things like that, which kind of falls in line with what Zerk was saying. But in reality, we're not actually connected. Actually, that was in 7. We're not actually connecting. There's like a very, very giant gulf between like our beliefs and the beliefs of our parents, and like families are just, the values are just not there anymore. And I think it's like directly hurting us. Church is not the answer. Church is not going to be the only people to just teach your children. You have to develop the faith yourself so that you can live it in front of your children. They see what true Christianity is, because nobody likes a hypocrite and nobody's quicker to call out like you're not actually what you're claiming than when you're saying, yeah, no, I'm the best Christian, whatever, and then they see you cursing out or gossiping about the other neighbor or whatever the freak you're doing. Like, you got to actually live it.
Okay, M87, what do we do? What's the solution here?
Okay. I'm gonna just stick to. So as far as the solution to this stuff, it's just close up parenting. You know what I mean? And it can start with us, especially because our generation as millennials, we grew up into, like, we seen the transition from us being going outside and having friends and playing in the mud and all that stuff and going to parties, all this, so on and so forth, to the transition into this technology age and this information, this computer age and stuff like that. And so we have we know how to how to use the technology. We know how to use the parental controls. We know how to they like the advanced features that can control like the that Wi-Fi and all that stuff. Like, we can in order to like of course it's gonna this does sound like a whole lot of policing and stuff like that, but like that's like one thing, like our mastery of technology it can be like beneficial for how we engage or how we kind of keep our children away from like problematic ideologies and stuff like that. But other than that, you're gonna have to like really engage with your children via communication. Obviously, I mean, I do like what Fanatiq is saying regarding like being more I don't want to say spiritual, because that can mean anything to so many different people. I do believe the Bible itself is great instruction. I think that would be the easiest way for every individual family to find success in raising their children. Unfortunately, I just feel like that's one heck of an uphill battle, considering like circumstances. I mean, it's I don't want to go into it right now, but all I'm gonna just say is with that aside, like, again, closely engaged with your kids, figuring out how their day went, like, hey, inviting like open conversations, and like essentially try to coach them through life, like try to keep them grounded in reality, yet I would argue that you should try to incite them, right? Inspire them to go move their life in the upwards trajectory, like go through our life and live it, and try to. I guess I'm just trying to say, inspire them to be better and create something in their life that they can that they'll have a return investment in, so they can live a life of abundance, maybe not even abundance, but live a well life, leading into their elder years. You know what I mean? Like, but living like and taking all the information from their peers, from social media and all these other modes of information gathering, it can be confusing to kids, and it can lead to a path of self-destruction if you as the parent are not intervening and guiding them in the proper upward trajectory directions. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay, Zerk. I'm getting a lot of from everybody this idea of kind of a technocracy, which is that technology is kind of starting to form and control our society in ways that we're not really able to control. Do you agree with that, Zerk? And then also, what is your proposed solution?
I do agree with that. And my proposed solution, I feel like what I heard from the other two guys was a lot of like, obviously, oh yeah, teach your kids this, teach your kids that. But here's the issue that I'm noticing. A lot of the people in my life who I feel like don't want kids are the exact people that need to be having kids. And then the reverse is true. So I feel like, one, what we can do to change it is make our own kids, because we're the ones who believe these things. We're the ones who will do these things. And anybody listening to us probably agrees with us. The problem is there's all these parents out there that aren't listening to us, or people like us, that are the ones making the kids that are the assholes. So the only way we can combat that is to, like, it's a meme that I saw that was like, why would you be afraid to create dragon slayers in a world that's full of dragons? And like, we need to make the dragon slayers. And if it's not in the cards for you, obviously it's not that easy. I can't find a woman who matches my same level of both integrity and degeneracy. So
Stop recording, all right.
but yeah, but it's like, because I am having trouble doing that, I might need to look into being like a sports coach or some sort of mentor, or joining some youth program where I can get access to the children's minds to instill these values in them. Because again, it's like, yeah, as a parent you want to do these things, but what if you're not a parent? Like, you can still help the kids. Like, that's when I say, what can we do? What we can do right now is look for those children to mentor. But what I think the best thing we can do is to have our own en masse. Like, and not that each of us has a bunch of kids, but that all of us have a kid.
Yeah, to be honest with you, you bring up a valid point. I'm gonna stop pulling out.
Hey, my dog.
Hold on. Can we get a clip? All right. This is very important for the future of.
No, but
keep your eye on that. Progress button there.
Yeah, I think, bro, that does answer that is a lot. Like, I think the like you said, the technocracy, it is a scary world. Like, I think about it all the time. Man, we were really sequestered in my family. We didn't have a television. Like, my mom really didn't let us listen to secular music. My older siblings snuck, so I did whenever they did, and I got to hear stuff. But like, she was really, really controlling of like the information that we got. I remember her getting these books. They were called Uncle Arthur's Bedtime Stories, and it was just a collection of all these stories, and it was actually made by these Seventh-day Adventist people. And so my mother got those books, or maybe it's Uncle Tom's Bedtime Stories. Uncle Tom or Uncle Arthur? It's Uncle Arthur. Okay. And so she went.
I hope it's not Uncle Tom. Jeez.
Right. So yeah, she went through, and she was like blacking out like certain segments of the book, and then wrote her own words because it had like ideologies that she knew that she didn't want us being instilled with. But that was like a very careful thing that she did to instill those kind of values. I just don't think that there's intentional parenting. And I totally agree with you that the vast majority of people who are out there having kids and stuff aren't doing it. I got a friend, I know quite a few people who are very intentional with their parenting, but two that like really stood out to me like crazy. My boy Matt and his wife Heather. I went and visited them with their kid, and it was just crazy. They were just like, hey, no, yeah. And it was just normal stuff to them. They're just like, yeah, we kind of keep track of every single thing he's ever eaten, and every time we've introduced a new food to him to ensure that we can like always keep track of his diet to make sure that, if he ever develops an allergy to something, we can know, oh, well, we just recently introduced this to him, so we know what it is. And I'm like, and then like I looked at all the toys. They were just like, yeah. So I'm looking, I'm like, okay, he's gonna go play, and they're just like, yeah, these are all Montessori toys, I think that they called them. And it was like, yeah, every single toy is designed for this kid's success. This is where he learns this skill. This is where he learned this skill. This is where, and then like they're teaching him words and teaching him languages and taking him to the zoo on a regular. And it was just like, I said, yo, this is how my brain thinks of how parenting is supposed to be. It's just, these are like some of the first people I've seen actively do it from like jump, where it's just like, nope, we're planning as meals, we're legit. And then the kid is already like OD smart, OD, like, and it's just like, yo, if everyone was very intentional, but it takes a certain level of intentional people. And of course, my friends would be that way. Like, just where it's like, no, I'm not going to just play at having a kid and just randomly have it. It makes me think of that movie Idiocracy. It's the people who are all like careful and like thinking about it, like we're the ones not. And then the people who are just like, you know what, man, let's just go half on a baby. Those are the ones that are having the kids. And then the kid, like, then they're separating, and then the kid's in broken homes, and then they're up for adoption, and then, you know, often you go, who knows what, you know what I mean? I can't have it. Hey,
Fanatiq said top tiers only.
Legit. That is some top tier parenting. They are OD.
That's S tier parenting.
That's the problem. I'm trying to pick a top tier right now. The woman, it's like,
it's so hard.
I'm about to have to be a low tier hero.
No, you guys be
looking for a diamond in a world of platinums.
You gotta just be like
shout out Sanford.
Father, that's all. Fastest fathers for the win.
Look, I want to inject this idea in here. I'm hearing a lot of go out, have your own kids. We can't be influencing other people's kids as much. I hear that. I think now in the technological age, one good thing that we can measure is that people like us are, as adults, we're able to
influence other people's kids.
Yeah, we can influence other people's kids, right? It may not be the first idea, the first fix that comes to mind, but these kids, if you're not allowed to watch TV, you're going to go to school, you're going to watch the stream that's on your friend's phone. There's no isolation in the way that it was anymore. Maybe something approximating it, but probably not unless you're like really min-maxing, like Fanatiq was just saying, like really going hard, putting in the work like that lady was doing. I think that in lieu of that, you're pretty much looking at these kids are going to go online and they are going to find leaders, and those leaders are going to be people like us, people who are sitting here with a camera, talking to them and telling them, hey, we hear you, we see you. Is that also good? Is that bad? Is that just neutral? What's the idea on that?
Mentoring is like incredible. It's just tough finding the time for it, bro. That's like the main thing. If you make enough money, I would say within the household, I'm talking about like a combination between you and everybody else that stays in the home. Make enough money to go out and go outside and talk to the children, talk to the children. That's wonderful. I definitely will recommend that over like indulging in your hobbies and stuff, or your self-interest rather. And you will definitely be doing a big service for the community.
Yep. I mean, again, I think all of that makes sense. There were points in times when my dad was in and out, and I remember so many different people that like kind of just took time. One of the people from the church I grew up in, Brother Wendell, I remember he would come by and say, I'm just going to take the kids out for a little bit. And he would just like do stuff with us. And he was just like, yeah, I know you the kind of situation you were going to, man, my uncle Obi, that dude stepped up in the craziest of ways, my dad's brother. And so, yes, like you can do that. And Uncle Obi didn't have any kids. He just did that. Neither did Brother Wendell, now that I think about it. Wow. So it's just like sometimes it is just being able to speak up in those situations. And then also I do think being mindful with your platform. I remember there was a point in time when I was streaming bigger back in the fighting game days, and I was like kind of popping a little bit on League. There were certain people that would come around that were like really like kind of young people. And I remember I was very, very conscientious. Like we're just not going to, the way we talk around them is going to be totally different than the way I'm willing, because I'm a crass nigga.
It's crazy how all those dudes are grown-ass men now.
Yeah, man. Skills that kills. That dude is like 25 or something crazy.
I ran into CJ Truth in a bar in Orlando. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think we all can be responsible in that way. And then that is, I guess, kind of the goal. You grow your platform, and then with your platform, you do lead to something positive. The problem is the positive messages are significantly less attractive. If I was like popping off on how women ain't nothing, and I grew like Andrew Tate, like Andrew Tate, then all of a sudden it'd be like, yeah, we'd be doing well, right? Like red pill stuff, the easier, the smallest brainwave stuff, that's the most attractive stuff. That's the stuff that tends to grow the highest. It's boring right now, just like for us right now, just talking about like, hey, this is what we think would be better for society. A lot of people don't have the patience or tolerance for it. But let me start talking about some ratchet, why we should be able to have 2 wives, or why we should be split in half on a bill, and then everybody wants to consume it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Can I just add some bit to that? I think the best thing because like, yeah, you're absolutely in the right as far as this whole Andrew Tate era, the red pill era of these guys telling these kids how to treat women and all that nonsense. The only thing I can think of to kind of counteract that is just utmost mastery of the platform itself. Because a lot of these guys are just doing what's popular, you know what I mean? But if you like had like a really good understanding of, I don't know, things like SEO, things like the algorithm itself, like the word webs and tags, and how it tags leads to other tags, how videos go viral and stuff like that. And then Google Analytics and things like that. If you can, there's ways for you to kind of latch on to other topics and then build an audience through that, and then essentially kite that visibility into something that's more that is more popular, like relationship dynamics, and but you can bring your own, like, spin your own narrative to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can think of to like counteract this red pill movement.
That's why you need a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a team.
To me, my X-Men.
Look, oh man.
Pretty much.
I was my mother had my older brother when she was 17, had me when she was 21. She wasn't ready for kids. She was a single mother. She was working 2 jobs. She didn't have no time to raise us. The only reason I have any morals right now is because at my church there are 2 kids, Jeremy and Jerome. They were brothers. They took me over to their house all the time when we played Madden 2K, 2K7, and WWE. And the only reason that I have any morals today is because of those people. So I would say 2 things. If you're on the adult side of things, remember, it's a cheesy statement. We've all heard it. With great power comes what? Great responsibility, right? If you are talking to people and you're influencing people, if you're posting on Snapchat and you see that you're getting 100 views in your area, if you're posting on Instagram and you see you get 1,000 likes for something, it may not be much, but you have power. Therefore, I would argue that you have a little bit of responsibility. You may not think that you're a leader. You may not think you're this incredibly influential person, but look up what a zeitgeist is. That's what our society is. It's a wave. There's no solid idea. Everything is in motion. Everything is fluid. You have no idea the impact you could really have by just standing up and trying to be a powerful figure, the waves you could make, and also the zeitgeist of it. That comes down to people watching, right? People watch Andrew Tate because of the same zeitgeist, and we can turn that around in the other direction. We just all have to put in the effort. And if you're a child, if you're watching this and you're wanting to be influenced, it's the same thing. You need to recognize that you have power more than any child before you. At the age of 10, the whole world is right there for you. And I know that's scary, and it's not fair that this burden has been put on you, but it is the truth. And now as the new age of 10-year-olds, which are wiser and smarter than any before, it is now your job to also be responsible. I know it's silly to think of when we're seeing them flossing on top of a target, but you have that responsibility and you have that power in you to, yes, go down these bad areas, but also to find someone that you like, find someone that you appreciate, and make that person your role model. You can say, look, I'm going to go to 4chan for these ideas. I'm going to go and look all these memes. I'm going to see what Andrew Tate has to say. But at the end of the day, when I really am not sure about what I believe, I'm going to go back to this role model person. I put my trust and my faith in them. Maybe it is your church. Maybe it is a person in your church. Maybe it's your best friend. You need to find something to put your faith and your belief in. And it can be your parents too. It doesn't matter. But the important thing is you need to find that thing. I refuse to believe that there are people who have who have nothing. Not today. Now when there's a Reddit for everything, you can find a group. Just be careful, be responsible, and make sure you're not ending up in groups that seem like they have a goal to change your mind or sway you or extremize you, and end up where you end up. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that we live in a world of shame. That is social media. That's Twitter. That's everything is shame. Shame on you for living this way. Shame on you for believing this thing. Shame on you for doing this thing. Don't worry. Don't feel unique or wrong for being shamed. We all feel the shame. Everybody feels shame constantly. When you post a video online and nobody watches it, I know that it's a shameful feeling. But shame can break or build us, and we need to start letting it build us. We need to stop letting the shame destroy us. With that, I want to go around and have everybody make their closing statements. Talk about where people can reach you. Talk about how people can meet you. M87, you got something?
Bro, y'all be saying all this insightful shit, and I be wanting to add some the cherry on and the whipped cream and the cherry on top, man.
Cherry it off, and give your shout outs. Go ahead, start us off.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, first of all, I need you to spell zeitgeist because that sounds interesting.
I think it's. I'm not gonna look it up and then copy and paste it. Right. I know how to spell it.
Damn, fuck it, I don't care anymore. It's in the chat.
Oh man.
As you know, I'm gonna just, you're right. I'm gonna just work it into like my closing. You say closing statements.
Yeah. Give your shout out. Talk about where this all came from. And kind of close it out.
Okay. So again, my shout outs, I don't know if everybody I did tell to watch, and they're still sticking around and watching. We appreciate you. I'm gonna shout out to everybody that is that I don't know that's watching. I'm gonna shout out to everybody that likes, shares, and subscribes. But the bigger shout out goes to everybody that takes these conversations and doesn't just leave them on these forums or on these panels. These conversations need to be had amongst your entire network, right? The only way we're going to be able to change the world, right, is going to be through the sharing of all these great conversations that we have on these panels. You know what I'm saying? So super duper shout out to those folks, and as like a bit of a just to kind of close it all out, get involved in your local politics. Like, get acclimated with all the jargon, all the language, and all that stuff. Try to make effort in understanding like the politics in general. Go to your local town hall meetings. All right, like there's this really big thing. I'm not going to shout any names or anything like that, but there's this really huge thing that's going around in one of my neighboring towns, and this mayor is just causing a huge uproar, and everybody just can't seem to stop talking about it. My thing is, the only reason she's getting so much attention, or I'm sorry, this town is getting so much attention, is because people are going to these town hall meetings and they're having conversations and they're making an uproar about it. If you don't go to your town hall meetings, if you don't get involved in your local politics, you would, like, Lord knows what's gonna go over your head and all the wild things you're gonna be paying for, right? So definitely get involved in your local town hall meetings and stuff like that. Share the knowledge, share the wealth, and again, shout out to the Chicago Black Delegation Podcast, my cronies and such, and be blessed, everybody.
All right. Zerk.
I feel like I kind of already said everything I needed to say. I feel much better about this week's performance, if I'm being honest. I believe that children are future. Teach them well and let them
Can I please use my buttons?
This is all about the censorship of the buttons. Oh my god.
But no, reach the kids, teach the kids, and the shame thing. Use shame as a motivator. Like, we live in a world where we've been trying to eliminate shame or avoid shame, and like Pons was saying, and no, like, we need shame. Like, our brain develops shame on purpose because it tells us that we need to change something. So lean into it.
Hell yeah. I'm Pons. I go by Just Pons, twitch.tv, Just Pons, YouTube, Just Pons, Twitter, Sensory Overlord. I absolutely agree that shame is a building tool. Anybody, especially the people in this call who have done professional gaming, know that the strongest builder of knowledge and power is losing. It's not winning. When you win, when you get everything right, when everything goes your way, your brain tells you that it went well. Sure, everything goes smoothly, but I was even saying before this panel started, the true defining of what shows your knowledge, what shows your prowess, is your ability to act under pressure. How do you act when someone proves you wrong? How do you act when someone makes you look like an idiot? And yes, we need to use shame and start building that. And I think that all of this social media drab and stuff, it's sad, but it's not the end of the world. I think we can find the way forward. We just need to start pushing. We need older people such as ourselves to start really pushing the youth to feel the good kind of shame, I guess. And I want to point out that before we go to Fanatiq, that next week we're going to be having a really cool discussion. It's going to be about Jonathan Majors. For those of you who don't know, Jonathan Majors has a really interesting case that has a lot of different moving pieces to it. And the big thing was that there was a cancellation that happened before the verdict. So really, we want to know,
Kegs.
Was that the right thing? Was it the wrong thing? That's Kang the Conqueror for everybody who doesn't know. Sorry.
We was Kegs.
So that's going to be next week. Be sure to stay here for that. Just Pawns, and send it over to Fanatiq.
Man, look, I'm very, very thankful for today's panel. It was a very, very much better conversation. Pons, you are a beast. You know exactly what freaking questions to ask because we didn't have a lot of information. You still drove us into like a very meaningful and I think productive conversation. I don't know what the hell I would do without you because I didn't give this nigga no information. I didn't choose the topics. I didn't choose what the ideas would be. I didn't come up with it. I just let him take the reins and he did amazingly. So thank you, Pons. Thank you guys for obviously participating as well and keeping the conversation interesting. That's like all that we can ask. Next week, hopefully, I have two people that I will be bringing onto the panel next week as well, who are like some of my favorite people. So I'm like really, really excited. One of these days, one day, Jeff is going to grace you with his presence on this panel. Smartest man I've ever met in my life. So I think that would be really awesome. And I can't wait to get into the Jonathan Majors things. You can find me, twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatiq. Twitter, Mr. Fanatiq. Instagram, Mr. Fanatiq. That's MrFanatiq. YouTube, Ask Fanatiq. And then music, all on every platform under the name Fanatiq. I look forward to these conversations. If you have topics and things that you think that would be really interesting, that would be great. Then just go ahead and reach out to myself or Pons. If you feel like you would like to be a guest on the Fanatiq panel, reach out to myself or Pons, and we'll try to set it up. Let us know. Thank you guys.